Welcome back to Hidden Car Gems, the channel where we talk about cars that make absolutely no sense. In 1978, Formula One did not just build fast cars, it accidentally created something far more dangerous. A machine that did not just push the limits of engineering, but quietly stepped past them. Because this was not just another race car. This was a car that could generate grip even when physics said it should not. A car that did not need speed to stay planted, because instead of relying on airflow alone, it used a giant fan to pull itself onto the track. Not almost, not slightly, violently. It raced once, it won, and then it vanished. To understand how Formula One reached that moment, you have to understand the mindset of the engineers at the time. Because in the late 1970s, they were not just building cars. They were chasing something far more precise: maximum grip. In Formula One, power means nothing if you cannot use it. You can have the fastest engine on the grid, but if your tires cannot hold the road, you lose everything in the corners. Corners are where races are won. That is why engineers became obsessed with downforce. The invisible force that pushes a car into the track. More downforce means more grip. More grip means more speed through corners, and more speed means dominance. At first, they relied on wings, large aerodynamic surfaces that pushed the car downward as air passed over them. But wings created drag, and drag slowed the car on the straights. So engineers started looking for something better, something more efficient. That's when ground effect changed everything. By shaping the underside of the car like an inverted wing, they could accelerate airflow beneath it. As the air sped up, pressure dropped, and the car was pulled toward the ground. This was different from wings. This was cleaner, more efficient, and far more powerful than anyone expected. Suddenly, cars weren't just fast in a straight line, they were fast everywhere. Cornering speeds increased dramatically. Drivers could push harder than ever before. But as always in Formula One, success revealed the next limitation. Because ground effect had a weakness, it depended on speed. At high speeds, the effect was massive. But as the car slowed down, the airflow weakened and the grip disappeared. That meant every slow corner was still a compromise, a moment where the car lost its advantage. And in a sport where milliseconds matter, that was unacceptable. So engineers pushed further. They added skirts, sliding panels that sealed the sides of the car to the track. These skirts trapped the airflow underneath, preventing outside air from disturbing the low-pressure zone. The result was dramatic. Downforce increased even more. Cars became faster, more aggressive, more difficult to control, but still, the core problem remained. Grip still depended on speed, and that dependency was something one man refused to accept. Gordon Murray, Brabham's chief designer, a man known for thinking differently, for questioning ideas others took for granted. Instead of asking how to improve ground effect, he asked something far more radical. What if the car did not depend on airflow passing underneath at all? What if you could control the air directly, remove it, manipulate it, force it to behave exactly how you wanted? The answer was bold, almost absurd. A fan, mounted at the rear of the car, large and constantly spinning, dominating the entire design. At first glance, it did not look like innovation, it looked like a loophole. Officially, the explanation was simple. The fan was there for cooling, to extract hot air from the engine bay, which technically it did. But that was not its true purpose. When the car began testing, the real effect became impossible to ignore. The fan was not just pulling hot air from the engine, it was pulling air from underneath the car itself, actively extracting it. And as that air disappeared, the pressure beneath the car dropped rapidly, creating a vacuum. This was not passive aerodynamics anymore, this was active control, a system that did not wait for speed but created its own downforce instantly. Estimates suggested the effect was enormous, over 1,000 kilograms of effective downforce, even at low speeds. To put that into perspective, that's roughly the weight of the entire car being pushed into the ground without needing high speed. That meant something extraordinary. The car could generate maximum grip almost all the time, slow corners, fast corners. It didn't matter, the grip was always there, and that changed how the car behaved completely. Where other cars struggled for traction, this one simply held the line. Where others had to balance speed and control, this one didn't. It felt unnatural. Drivers described it as if the car was glued to the track, as if an invisible force was holding it down, far beyond what tires alone should allow. And the data confirmed it. Higher cornering speeds, more consistent grip, less variation between different sections of the track. This wasn't just better, this was different, fundamentally different. Other teams started to notice. At first, curiosity, then concern. The numbers didn't match expectations, the behavior didn't match known physics, and in Formula One, when something doesn't make sense, it becomes dangerous. Then came the moment of truth, the Swedish Grand Prix, the first and only race where this machine would show its full potential. Behind the wheel was Niki Lauda, a driver known not just for speed, but for precision, for understanding exactly what a car was doing beneath him. He wasn't the kind of driver to be impressed easily. If something worked, he would know immediately. And from the very first laps, he did. The car felt different, more stable, more planted, more controlled. Through corners, it carried speed effortlessly. Where others struggled, it remained calm. Lap after lap, the same pattern repeated. Consistency, control, confidence, until the result became unavoidable. Victory. Not after development, not after refinement, immediately. And that's when everything changed, because now, this wasn't theory anymore. It was proof. Other teams realized exactly what they were dealing with. If this concept continued, they would have no choice. They would all have to build similar systems. Formula One would not evolve gradually. It would transform overnight into something entirely different. The protests came quickly. Questions were raised. Was this really a cooling device, or was it clearly designed to generate aerodynamic advantage? The rules were not clear enough to stop it, and they had not been written for something like this, because no one expected anyone to go this far. What followed was not just a technical discussion, it became political. Behind the scenes, pressure built rapidly. Teams argued, officials debated. This was no longer just about one car, it was about the identity of the sport itself. And the conclusion became clear. Even if it was not explicitly illegal, it broke the balance. So Brabham made a decision, not because the car failed, not because it didn't work, but because it worked too well. They withdrew it. Voluntarily, after just one race, one win, and then nothing. The Brabham BT46B never got the chance to evolve, never got the chance to dominate a championship, never got the chance to force every team to follow. But maybe that's exactly what makes it so important, because it revealed something Formula One rarely admits, that the limits of performance aren't always defined by engineering. Sometimes they are defined by what the sport is willing to accept. For one brief moment, this car stepped beyond that limit, and in doing so, it became something more than just a race car. It became a warning, a glimpse of what happens when innovation moves faster than the rules. And that is what makes the fan car one of the greatest hidden car gems of all time. If you want more stories like this, subscribe, because there are still machines out there that should never have existed.